Hello again, my little poet. We are going to spend some more time today analyzing a poem. You should have printed out The Truth About Dragons Tooth. I know it looks kind of long, but it's really not. It reads really quickly. And we are going to answer the questions together. So make sure you have that because we're going to go through the questions and then you're going to be doing some on your own. So let me screen share. Here we are. Okay. We have The Truth About Dragons, about the dragon's tooth. Maybe you've already read it. Maybe you want to pause it and read it on your own first. Otherwise, you can follow along with me. When we look at our illustrations, always analyze that stuff first. Sorry, my keys are bothering me. We have a castle, we have a knight, we have a dragon. So right away, we know that this is not true. And then on the second page, we have a giant. And the title is The Truth About the Dragon's Tooth. It's always good to look at the pictures first and the photographs. Okay. In poetry, each section is called a stanza. They're not paragraphs like in books, but you can see where there's a space in between. So that would be stanza 1, that's stanza 2, just that one. Just this one is stanza 3, this one is stanza 4. So this poem has 10 total stanzas, okay? That's like the paragraph of a poem. Here we go. The king called me to his throne and said, that dragon must be slayed. I bowed and played the brave, strong knight, but in truth, I was afraid. This is a rhyming poem. As I dressed in shining armor and sharpened sword and lance, a voice inside me whispered, you haven't got a chance. I climbed upon my faithful horse and rode off into the gloom. I hoped I'd see my home again on the other side of doom. I rode into the mountains and faced the dangerous beast. The dragon licked its lips and said, a man, a horse, a beast. I raised my lance to charge it, thinking, what else can I do? Then the trees behind it crashed and fell as a giant marched into view. The earth beneath began to shake. His huge figure blocked the sun. Then the giant shouted happily, why, I found you, little one. As he bent down to catch the dragon, I began to understand the dragon was the giant's pet. And scooped up in one huge hand, the giant turned to me and said, your people will want proof that you bravely faced my giant, so I'll give you this baby tooth. He reached into the dragon's mouth and wiggled out a monster fang, and then tossed it through the air at me. It hit my shield, clang! The people cheered when I returned and waved the dragon's sword-like tooth. But I found I was afraid again, afraid to tell the truth. So that worked out a lot differently than maybe you thought, right? So the dragon was the giant's pet. The giant understood that the knight was supposed to kill him, so he gave him a tooth to prove to the other villagers that he did kill him when he really didn't. But now he was afraid to tell the truth. That's a good poem, right? Okay, let's go through these questions together to make sure that you understand how to analyze and read poetry. Reread the first stanza of the poem. The king called me to his throne and said, the dragon must be slain. I bowed and played the brave, strong knight, but in truth, I was afraid. So the question is asking in stanzas, how do stanzas 2 and 3 build on this opening? What does that mean? Well, how do stanzas 2 and 3 sort of help the way that they've started the poem? So what do? We go back and reread stanzas 2 and 3. So I want you to go back and reread stanzas 2 and 3. You'll sip of water while you're reading. Okay, you've read stanzas 2 and 3 again. Remember, you've got to do all the work. I can't read everything for you. And it says, how does this help build upon it? So, do stanzas 2 and 3, do they show the knight deciding to be brave? Yep. So I'm going to put a check mark. That's my maybe. But you always reread all your answer choices. Do they show that the knight doesn't think he'll survive? Kind of. Do they show that the knight has plans to ride home instead? No. They show others telling the knight he is doomed. No, he's talking to himself. So now I have two maybes. They show the knight deciding to be brave. They show that the knight doesn't think he'll survive. So now I'm going to go back and look. He dressed in armor. He whispered, "You haven't got a chance." He got on his horse and rode into the gloom. I'd hoped I'd see my home again on the other side of doom. So he's hoping he's still going to see his home. I think they show A. He's deciding to be brave. Okay? But I can see how you could have mixed that one up. Number 2, stanzas 4 through 10, each add something new to the story. Write the correct stanza number on each line to show when the event occurs and how the story builds. So sometimes these questions are really long. You just have to reread the question. So this is an event that it happens in stanzas 4 through 10. So what we are going to do is write down the stanza number on each one. So I'm just going to go back. Rather than trying to find all these random sentences, I need to make it easy for myself and start at stanza 4. Then I'm going to find the answer choice. I rode into the mountains and faced the dangerous beast. The dragon licked its lips and said, "A man, a horse, a feast." Which event matches that stanza? The knight meets the dragon, right? So then I would put a 4 here. Does that make sense? Okay, let's read stanza 5. I raised my lance to charge it, thinking, what else can I do? Then the trees behind it crashed and fell as a giant marched into view. So what happened there? We see the giant. What number? Which one is that? Oh, a giant appears. That would be a number 5. Now let's look at 6. The earth beneath began to shake. His huge figure blocked the sun. Then the giant shouted happily, "Why, I found you, little one." What does the dragon do? I mean, the giant. What happened there? The giant sees the dragon, right? All right, let's look at 7. As he bent down to catch the dragon, I began to understand. The dragon was the giant's pet, scooped up in one huge hand. Which one is that for number 7? Yep. Number 8. The giant turned to me and said, "Your people will want proof that you bravely faced my giant, so I'll give you this baby tooth." The giant realizes the knight needs proof. That's exactly what they said, right? That was 8. 9. He reached into the dragon's mouth and wiggled out a monster fang. He tosses the baby tooth, so that's 9. And is number 10, the knight is afraid to tell what happened? Yep, because the last line says, "Afraid to tell the truth." So really, I know it takes some time to go back and find answers, but it makes it really easy. It's not hard to do, it just takes a few extra minutes. All right, let's look at number 3. Stanza 6 begins, the earth beneath began to shake. What happens in stanza 5 that explains why the earth is shaking? Once again, it's telling you where to find the answer. Let's go back to stanza 5. I raised my lance to charge it, thinking, what else can I do? Then the trees behind it crashed and fell as a giant marched into view. So, the dragon attacks the knight and his horse. The knight charges the dragon with his lance. Nope. A giant marches toward the knight and dragon. Check mark, because that's a yes, that's a maybe. Some trees are cut down in a nearby forest. No, they didn't talk about that at all. C was my answer. Every answer choice, I go through and think. It's an X if it's a definite no, and a check mark if it's a maybe. Sometimes there's two maybes, and you have to redefine the best one. All right, let's keep going. This question has two parts. First, answer part A, then part B. How do stanzas 6 and 7 change how the knight feels in stanza 5? How do stanzas 6 and 7 change how the knight feels in stanza 5? Again, it tells us where the answers are. So stanza 5, we just read, that's where the giant comes around. Stanza 6 and 7, the earth began to shake, his huge figure blocked the sun, then the giant happily shouted happily, well, I found you, little one. As he bent down to catch the dragon, I began to understand. The dragon was the giant's pet, scooped up in one huge hand. So stanza 5, he sees the giant. 6 and 7, he realizes it's the giant's pet. All right, in stanza 5, the knight is only worried about the dragon. I already know that's wrong, so I don't even have to read the rest of it because it was the giant. In stanza 5, the giant is trying to figure out what else he can do. No, in stanza 5, he sees the giant. In stanza 5, the knight is afraid of the dragon and giant. In stanza 6 and 7, he realized the dragon is the giant's pet. That's a solid maybe. In stanza 5, the knight is getting ready to charge the dragon. In stanza 6 and 7, he realizes the giant will slay the dragon. Not at all. C is our correct answer. Now, when there's part A's and B's, part B needs to match part A. So part A, the knight is afraid of the giant and dragon, and in 6 and 7, he realizes the dragon is his pet. So we need one detail from each stanza that proves that the dragon is the giant's pet. What's one line? I want you to do the work on this one. What's a line in this stanza that proves that he realizes it's the giant's pet? One line, not the whole sentence, just one line. Yep, you should have underlined. Well, I found you, little one. Because you're not going to call somebody that if you don't like them, right? And stanza 7, I want you to do the same thing. Which is a line, that one's, stanza 7's pretty easy. Which is a line to match our answer in part C. You always have to go back and match them. It says right here, the dragon was the giant's pet. I'm sure you got that one. All right, we are almost done. A lot of questions, but it's good practice. What does the giant do in stanza 9? Again, it tells you where to find the answer. Go back and read stanza 9. You read it. Okay. He makes the trees crash and fall to the ground. No. He blocks out the sun while he walks along. He did, but that was before. That wasn't stanza 9. He throws the monster fang to the knight. Check mark. He makes the earth shake as he marches. He did, but that did not happen in stanza 9. So C, that's what you always have to be careful of. You have to remember what the question is asking. Because two of those things, three of them happened, but 2 happened in a different stanza. So you have to make sure you're answering the actual question. In stanza 10, why is the knight afraid again? I already remember the answer, you probably do too, but we are responsible learners and we are going to reread stanza 10. So reread it. I bet you remember it anyways, right? He was afraid he might be sent to fight another dragon. No. He was worried that people won't like the real story of what happened. Maybe. He was afraid that the giant will appear and tell the truth. He didn't say that, did he? He is afraid the tooth isn't enough proof that he has slain the dragon. You don't think so? He worries that people won't like the real story of what happened because he was afraid to tell the truth. I bet you got that one too. Okay, last question. Reread the second stanza. Now, they already put it here, so you don't have to go back into this poem. As I dressed in shining armor and sharpened sword and lance, a voice inside me whispered, you haven't got a chance. Which three words help you understand that lance is a type of weapon? Dressed, armor, sword. I don't think so. Dressed does not help me tell that it's a weapon. Armor, sharpened sword. Armor is not a weapon, that's what they wear, but it kind of goes together, doesn't it? I would say maybe. Shining armor, chance. Shining and chance, definitely not. Dressed, shining, chance. None of those. So B is our correct answer. Okay, so you always have to go back and look and reread them all because we weren't sure about armor, even though it does go with the weapons. So when we read the other answer choices, those were definitely no. So I know B is my correct answer. That was a fun poem, wasn't it? A lot of work with the questions, but the poem was fun. Your next task is your independent work. You are going to read Squirrel. This one is not labeled the stanzas. This one is labeling the lines. So it's a little different. So this would be line 1. If this is line 5, then it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. See how that works? Okay, so you're going to read Squirrel. And you have 3 questions, but question 1 is part A and B. So make sure, again, your answer choice for part B, go back to make sure it matches part A. So you have 1, 2, 3 questions. And you are going to put them on the discussion post labeled Squirrel. And you will be fine. All right? Happy reading to your poems. See if you can identify what kind of poem it is that we learned about yesterday. Have a great Tuesday.